Ours is a very complicated relationship, my mother said to me recently. We started as vines of ivy wrapping around each other, close. Eventually, one vine was ready to spring free as the other clung. The danger? Suffocation at the roots. Mine has been a life focused on healing, on unlearning the lessons my mother taught me, not through words or sentiment, but through the state of her own body, her own life. I am a yogini, and I both practice and teach the yogic way through offering love and compassion to all beings. The problem is that I can't seem to do this with my own mother, at least not consistently. I hold guilt around not loving her unconditionally, even as I fiercely love the world. Fear around wanting to walk out of her life forever, and shame around not being able to forgive her. The mother I see is the one of the past, the clinging vine. I've always feared my mother's heart, the breadth and depth of her love, where it has taken me. In yoga, the hands and arms are an extension of the heart chakra. The space that holds and expresses love energetically is also the space that harbors grief. In my case, it was my mother's elbow, bone sharp, rough, and gray from dirt rooting into dry skin, that forever changed the shape of my own heart. It was late, dark, downright cold in the wintry Texas hills. One wood-burning stove served as the heat in our two-room hunting cabin. The same stove heated water to wash our dishes, our bodies. I was the youngest who bathed last in the orange basin from which the cows drank. It was the filth of my family that cleansed me. That night, I slept in the back bed, jammed between her and a concrete wall, fully clothed. I don't know why I thought the wall of my mother's body, the sleeping Doberman at my feet, would serve as an extra barrier. I had no evidence to support this, but I was a child who was still in love with the thought of her mother, until the elbow. Soft snores from gently flapping lips slid from the three other beings on the bed, my mother, the dog, her lover turned unofficial stepfather. My brother slept in the only other room, the front room where we usually shared a bed. Though the gentle sounds of peaceful sleep softened the air in the cabin, still I held my breath. A voice, unhesitant, confident, can I touch you? There was no room in the statement for a question mark. No, a forceful eruption, quick and bold, from a small voice that was tired of being touched, raped, tortured. The fear I walked around in was a skin-tight suit that cinched my ribs and held my breath hostage. Just one forceful no, knowing that when I denied him, he would beat my mother in front of both my brother and me. Or maybe this was the first of two no's I remember saying to him, the second resulting in him coming after me with a knife, and my mother jumping in front of him, and him jamming the blade into a block of wood harder than my soft flesh. I don't remember which came first. Memory is neither linear nor chronological. I do know this no resulted in my mother's elbow shooting into my ribs like a life-saving reflex, silencing me for decades to come. A thick black haze covers most of the rest of that night. If it was like countless other times, he would have reached over my mother's body to touch my own. Recent or fresh memories, as I call them, imply that she may have even joined in. A fact she both denied and said, well, maybe, in the space of a breath. She has little memory of that time in her life. She was constantly intoxicated and claims, quote, nothing is impossible. Whether she reacted with silence or participation, it was just another incident when the lines between mine and my mother's bodies blurred, intertwined and distinct. We slept together until I was 16. When we escaped Texas, we lived with my grandfather, my mother and I sharing a bedroom from ages 11 through 16. The room was small. We made it bigger by pushing our twin beds together. She spooned me to fall asleep, our bodies meeting in the middle. One of our morning rituals was to push the beds back together, she on her side, me on mine, so there was no separation between the two. My mother was always a tall woman, and when I was young, she was bigger than life. At first, I wrapped my arms around her knees, my cheek against her pronounced bones. As I grew, I rested my ear against the soft musical instrument of her belly. Now that I am older, and on the rare occasions when I allow her to hug me, I am able to embrace her shoulders. It's not because I've gotten taller. I've stood nearly 5'7" most of my life, but my 5'11" mother has shrunk, so much so that when we sit across the table from each other, our eyes are level. One of the deepest lessons my mother taught me was to hate the body simply because it took up too much space. Accepting the body for its uniqueness is one of the gifts yoga has given to me. My mother was my first love, my first teacher. To this day, she struggles with life, her weight, money, everything she has done. I see her as a deeply grooved record, one that keeps skipping but can't get off the damaged part in order to play a new section of a song. Pieces of my own life are like that damaged record too, mostly the ones that relate to her and my past. But what I am learning is that there comes a moment when it's time to lift that record off the player and smash it to bits. And then there's this. Because of her, I know exactly who I am and what I am meant to do with this heartbreakingly beautiful life. Our biology connects us like that vine of ivy, but it's the lessons my mother taught me that helped sculpt who I am always becoming. In her perfectly flawed parenting, she taught me how to parent myself. I believe she did her best. When I allow myself this realization, I am brought to my knees bowing in gratitude. I am pieces of everything I have lived through, and I wouldn't be the same me if all had not been as it was. To that, I wouldn't change any of it. So even as I struggle to accept and unlearn all that has happened, and even as I fiercely writhe to untangle my own roots from those of my mother's, I stretch towards the sun, ever unfolding into myself.